Hello and welcome in to the Audible, and we are going to be breaking down class by class tonight. I got Duran Miller here with me. Always good to have Duran in talking ball. Makes it a little easier to talk ball when you're in here.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's always a good time. It's always a lot of fun. But we're excited though. Got football Friday, coming up. Uh, 0 week, just right around the corner. We can basically taste it at this point. So
let's get into it. Thank you to Toad Thumper Lures, and thank you to Warp Stream. So the link is in the description for Warp Stream.
Oh, yeah.
The thing about Warp Stream is if you want to take control of your child's recruitment, that's a good way to do it. Make sure you go check that link out. For the 4A top 10, we're going to start at number 10. And at number 10, we've got the 4A8 representative, the Monticello Billies. Monticello is a team, and I don't want to get too far into the breakdowns of each team, but Monticello is a team that I think could jump up these rankings this year. But right now in the 4A8, you've got obstacles of Stuttgart and Warren. They're always there for them, but an ultra-talented team there. So at number 10, we have the Monticello Billies, Joseph Ackles, Jackson Rawls.
Yeah.
Interested to see what their quarterback situation's like down there. But, man, last year they struggled a little bit. They got it together as time went on, and they were a tough team in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we had them first game of the year against Fordyce, and that's what we saw. It was a little bit of a quarterback carousel. One guy was throw first, one guy was run it first, so they had to figure all that out, and they finally came along, did really good. Wanted to talk a little bit more about Joseph Ackles and Jackson Rawls. Rawls, big tight end, and
looks the part.
He's getting some pretty heavy considerations from what I've read, what I've seen. I think he might have at least gotten some interest from Arkansas. I can't remember, so I don't want to go on record to say that. But he's a big time player, and then Ackles is a guy that I think could really get some. He can move up the ladder, get some bigger D1 offers this year. He's a really fun back. Top end speed's really good. I don't know if it's elite, but the guy can make the cuts. He's a hard nosed runner. I'll tell you, he reminds me a little bit of Dupree from Malvern just a few years back, kind of cut out of that same mode a little bit.
Yeah.
So he might have a little more wiggle than Dupree, maybe not quite as physical as Dupree, but mostly a north and south runner. So, I think Monticello's got some good things going for him this year.
At number 9, we're going to go up into the northeast Arkansas territory, and we're going to give you the Southside Charter. Southerners there, Coach Kenny Simpson always does a phenomenal job there at Southside, and we really can't count those guys out. I'll tell you right now, just looking at the 4A, there's so many teams that you can mention in this mix. 4A and 3A are always that way. Southside, their quarterback Trey Allen coming back. They got a shot at being pretty good again this next year. Gosnell is right above them at number 8. The Gosnell team there, the Gosnell Pirates, came out of nowhere last year. And, man, they bring back a bunch. They bring back a whole lot to their team. And so they're going to be really, really good.
I just realized that we're just going through the top 10.
Well, we're going to go down.
Yeah, we're going to go down later. And we're going to talk about everybody. So that's why you were kind of like,
I'm starting there.
On here.
Right. Yeah. Coming in at number 7 is the Bauxite Miners. And, man, they've number 1, they're moving into the 4A2, a team or a conference that I think is a manageable conference for them. They move out of the 4A7 into the 4A2. Last year they made the quarterfinals of the state. Wyatt Foreman is the kid that we were talking about here, 1562 passing, 1619 rush, and just a young
on purpose, and
just a young player there.
He's a big help for them. They were 9-4 last year. They basically got about 16 starters back.
Right.
So, really poised to do good things. And just quickly, first glance at that conference, it looks like, they've got it really nice. But that conference has gotten a lot better. So we'll talk about that later.
Arkadelphia coming in at number 6. Obviously, you feel like you could count on Arkadelphia almost year in and year out to be in that top. I think Arkadelphia, you could make an argument for them to be higher, and they could end up being higher before the year's over.
I agree. Caden Whitaker, Mario Brownlee, they got some players for sure still, and new coach. We'll see how that works out, but they easily could end up in our top 2 or 3 before it's over.
So we want to welcome in Carson Ward here to our rankings and class previews. This is the 3rd year that Carson's been with us for all of it, but for the class previews here. I know that's something that he enjoys. So he is now in with us. So let's go ahead and go to number 5. And I think that a lot of people would say, this might be a little high, but I really feel good about this team right here, the Ozark Hillbillies. I think Ozark's got a chance here. I really flirted with moving them up beyond, even Elkins and even Warren there, kind of in that 3 spot. They bring back a lot, and they've got a lot of good things. I feel like they're a pretty heavy favorite in this conference.
Yes,
and we'll talk about the 4A4 and that a little bit more, but Ozark. Really good.
John Skolarski, and he's not a one trick. I mean, they got a cupboard full, and it's their year to really do some good things. Second year under Watson.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to Elkins really quick at number 4. Elkins Elks, defending state champions. They are, I think, one of the reasons why I don't have them as high as some do. I think they've lost quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that Elkins is going to be competitive. They're very, very good. This is a program now. It's not just a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year type of deal. This is a program now that Zach Watson's got there.
Yep.
I haven't looked at his overall record, but I feel like it was like 60-something and 8.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
he's a guy that every time a big time coaching job opens up in the state of Arkansas, he's a guy that a lot of people like to mention as this guy could leave and he hasn't left yet, which I think is pretty indicative of what he's building at Elkins and how much confidence he has in that program to give him the resources that he needs. And he's won a state title there already. So, who's to say that he won't build on that and turn this into a dynasty?
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, every time that he doesn't leave, I mean, we know that's not probably the only reason, but there's definitely he feels good about what he's got coming back.
Oh yeah, I know for a fact that he has told people around him that it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot to get him because he's got just a really good setup over there at Elkins.
Is that like a Jerry Maguire thing, or
I don't know. Let's move on 3, 2, and 1 here, and then we can start getting into the conferences. Number 3, Warren. The number 2, Nashville, those two are synonymous with each other almost. I mean, both orange and black. It seems like year in and year out in the 4A. Those two are going to be mentioned. You've got to mention with Warren, you got to mention Jackson Denton, 250 of 432 last year, 4,700 yards and 58 touchdowns.
And he lost he lost Antonio Jordan, guys like that. Still put those numbers up. So I'm very high on Warren.
Yep.
I think he's like the 4th leading returning passer in the nation.
Yep.
Or something like that. I may be wrong on the exact number.
I think he might even be 3rd or something. Yeah, it's up there.
I may be wrong on the 4th slot, but
it's up there.
He's top 5 for sure.
Kane Price and Stuttgart Ricebirds come in at our number 1 spot. I think that's kind of a consensus around the state that those guys come in at 1. I mean, Kane Price, top quarterback in the state. At least by recruiting rankings, 3,600 yards, 42 touchdowns last year. Over 1,000 yards rushing as well. I mean, he's phenomenal, and you got to think he's a D3 candidate for MVP. Yeah. You got to think he's right up there amongst the top he was last year. I think he ended up finishing 4th last year.
He's gonna go from being a Ricebird to a Bobcat. It looks like Texas State, and on NCAA 27, I got him as a wide receiver. I talked him into coming to Arkansas, playing for me, and he's doing pretty good as a freshman.
Well, let's go to the 4A1, and I think the talk of the 4A1 is there are some people that feel like Gravett is the team right now that could overtake Elkins this year. Gravett returns a ton. Kelby Bohannon over there has done a really good job, but those two teams seem to be the class of the 4A1. Prairie Grove comes in, I feel like a little bit behind them, Gentry, those two battling it out. And then I think there's a really big fall off after number 4.
I agree.
Yeah. You look at that conference, and it's one I remember a couple of years ago. That Elkins Gravett game was the talk of the entire state for quite a while. And then we got to talk to Coach Bohannon last offseason, and obviously it's a program that he's really passionate about. To me, it's hard to put them over Elkins in any capacity, just because Elkins is a consistent, just top of the entire pile in that class, not just in that conference. And so, as long as Zach Watson's the head coach there, it's going to be hard to pick anybody but Elkins to win that conference.
I agree. One good thing for Gravett is they do get their one of their main runners back in J.D. Bean. He's 1,098 yards on 200 carries, 20 touchdowns last year. That's going to help them, and they've got some big-time receivers coming back. They've got 3 of their top guys back. Gage Botorf, Cade Phillips, and Austin Wolf. Those guys went for 826, 650, 363, and a total of 11 touchdowns amongst them. So, got some good guys coming back there. Defensively, they got some guys like Jack Grimes, Burnett, Peyton Burnett, and Calvin Bird, all coming back with all of them over 60 tackles last year. So got some guys coming back to lead them defensively. So they got a chance to really push Elkins for that top spot.
I've got my Huntsville Eagles hat on, and you got to wonder who's going to come into that 5th spot there. Berryville, C.T. Hicks, returning quarterback there, one of the top producers in the conference coming back.
Runner as well.
Yeah, very good player there. One of the best players that they've had come through there in quite a while. Can they snag that 5th spot? You've got Huntsville, Green Forest. Those two are also kind of battling it out. Then Lincoln right now seems to be the pick that everybody says is going to come into that 8th spot.
Yeah, which, they've been really good, but they've fallen on hard times a little bit. They lost a lot of production last year.
Well, they are usually a team that makes the playoffs, but they also bounce between 3A and 4A quite a bit. I mean, it seems like every other cycle they're a 3A or 4A team, and of course, when you're doing that, when you're on your 4A cycle, it usually doesn't work out very well for you. So, I'm going Elkins, Gravett, Gentry, Prairie Grove, Berryville. I think Gentry above Prairie Grove because they have been a running team, wing T team for 25 years. And now they're going to spread it out. That's going to take some time to get things going there.
Yeah, I think when you look at and we talked about this with our coaching carousel video that we did. To me, Prairie Grove is a team that could either, to me, take a huge step forward or a huge step back, right? They've got all the pieces of a successful football team, but they've run the same offense probably since they were in youth football. We see that a lot in those kind of programs. And so, to me, if you come in and Coach Brill decides to run the spread, obviously Coach Brill is a fantastic coach. Rogers always had one of the top offenses in the state when he was over there. But I think if I had to pick one team that could take a huge step forward this year in 4A with a new head coach, I don't want to say Arkadelphia just because that's a team that's been winning a lot and they promoted from within. And there's other teams too, but I really, really like Prairie Grove. I think that they've got a lot of potential. We'll see how a spread offense translates to that program, but it's going to be really interesting to see just how Coach Brill does in year 1.
Yeah, I agree. I've got. It's a tough one. I want to almost take Gravett over Elkins, but I just can't do it. I've got too much faith in Watson, and we've been up there. We've seen the facilities. We've called games there, basketball and football. They've just reloaded. They lost a lot, but they got I believe their quarterback's back, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Elkins?
Yeah.
Yeah. Austin Bourne, he was the backup for part of the year last year, kind of moved into that starting role in the playoffs and guided them. And then he kind of played he kind of played like a secondary quarterback there, running type of quarterback, but he took over the final game there against Dardanelle and really helped blow that game open.
Well, and in limited action early. He ended up with 665 yards passing and 6 touchdowns, ran for 350 and 5 touchdowns. So one of the returning leaders in that conference, numbers-wise, rushing and passing, actually. So I'm going to go with Elkins. I got Graffit right on their heels. Then I'm going to go Gentry. I'm going to go Prairie Grove. I'm a little worried about Prairie Grove with the transition. I did lose a lot of guys. They don't have any returning guys that were in the top of the conference coming back. So we'll see how that works out. But I do have them ahead of Berryville as well. Berryville's got a great quarterback, but I'm worried about their returning on the up front on both sides.
When it comes down to it, when you take that top four, Berryville is 5. One of the reasons why you have to go that way, in my opinion, just the resources that's thrown at the football programs in those programs versus what is at Berryville and Huntsville, Green Forest. Huntsville's got a new coach. I think, can they jump up into that playoff spot? They've done that recently. We'll see what happens. I think that they feel okay about what's going on over there as well. But I think when you've got a kid like Hicks as your quarterback there, I think it gives you the advantage. So I think Berryville comes into that 5 spot. Moving on to 4A2. As we talked about, you've got Bauxite, Lone Oak, Clinton, Heber Springs, Mayflower, Haskell, Harmony Grove. Man, if I start naming all these conferences without looking at them, I'm going to miss it because there's so much change. Clinton is one of them. Heber, I named those 2 there. You got it there. CAC, Mayflower, and Bald Knob. Conference there, 4A2 is a little bit better than it was last year. Again, we like Bauxite. Bauxite's the top team, at least in our rankings in that conference. Wyatt Foreman, again, a kid that we talked about, dual threat quarterback, 1562 in the air, 1619 on the ground. I think he was he was in the top 5, I believe, in our newcomer of the year last year. So anyway, we feel good about Bauxite. I feel good about Bauxite. I think Coach Clay Bemberg is doing a good job at Lone Oak as well. So they come in at 2. Clinton. Clinton had a really, really good football team last year. Came within a few seconds of beating Arkadelphia at Arkadelphia. They were unable to overcome that. It just, it's just a tough place to go down there.
I think they ended up was the last second play.
Yeah, I think they ended up with 24 seniors last year.
Right.
Very, very good team. I like them again. Coach Dufresne is one of those guys. He's a good coach. I think he'll have his team
physical, hard-nosed. Right. They're a blue-collar team.
So I'm going to just go ahead and give you my 5 right now. Bauxite, Lone Oak, Clinton, Heber, and Mayflower. I got Clinton over Heber because Clinton has beaten Heber like 10 years in a row. So it's just kind of like picking Bryant in the 7A anymore. Like, I'm going to pick Bryant until I can't pick him anymore. So I'll pick Clinton over Heber because Clinton beats Heber every year, and until that changes, then we'll go ahead and pick Clinton over Heber, and Mayflower, in my opinion, comes in that 5 spot.
Go ahead, Carson.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very competitive conference. Obviously, Clinton is a tough competitor every year. Coach Carmichael over at Heber Springs does a really good job with that group. Bauxite's going to be hard to pick against just because every year they seem to have, Power 4 level talent. A couple years ago they had Marcus Wimberly. Last year they had Evan Goodwin. And so they always seem to have 1 or 2 guys that come in there and really produce. Wyatt Foreman may be the next guy for them. He had a tremendous season last year. Obviously, just an all-around good football player, elite football IQ, elite speed, and everything that goes with that, playing quarterback. And so, to me, this is a guy that usually when you have a player that plays his sophomore year, he takes a big step up his junior year. Well, Foreman played as a freshman last year, so he gets 3 more years of high school to really develop and show what he has. And I think he'll take a big step forward this year, maybe not statistically because it's hard to do better than he did last year, but just in the way that he plays, the way that colleges are going to look at him, those kind of things that kind of are in the details of the game, I think he could take a big step forward. And I agree, it's hard to pick Bauxite here. Hard not to pick Bauxite here, excuse me.
Okay. I'm a lot. I don't know. I'm definitely a little different than y'all on the bottom two or three. I've definitely got Bauxite right off the bat. Like what you talked about, Wyatt Foreman, he can do it with his legs and his arm. He's a big one, really good one for them. That was very young last year. It was impressive to see what he did. They supposedly have about 16 starters back, which I know 4A you're going to have some of those guys going both ways, but several back on both sides of the ball. I think Bauxite is easily the pick there. Lone Oak, I like a lot. Dylan Dean is a really good quarterback for them. He threw for 1850 last year, had 16 touchdowns passing. I've got them in my 2 spot, and this is where I start to change a little bit. I know Mayflower lost a bunch, but I do love the fact that they got their quarterback Carter Smith back. He threw for 1950 last year. He's a good one. He had 26 touchdown passes, which I know he lost a lot of the guys that he throws to, but I like that. And they also have a couple good linebackers, and one of them is Isaac Emil, had 85 tackles last year. He's a guy that I think will help them. So I've got them up there. I actually have CAC at 4. CAC has got Hoover Brogdon back, had 644 yards receiving last year. Jackson Plumley, their quarterback, that's the coach's son, threw for 1367, ran for 556. I mean, he's going to be back season. He's a coach's son. You know, he's going to have that savvy to him. Eli Cash, a good running back for him, had over 500 yards rushing last year. And so, I mean, I think CAC is going to kind of surprise some people. They've been on rough times the last few years. Plumlee came in and the whole team was gone. You know, they went different places and some of them had graduated. So I've got them at 4. And then I've got Clinton at 5. And like you said, that's kind of how I went with them and Heber. Heber, I think this is the year to beat Clinton. If you're going to do it, you need to get them right now. Clinton's definitely rebuilding this year. But Coach Dufresne, always hard-nosed, physical. They're not going to beat themselves, so you're going to have to bring your A game. And if you do that, I think Heber can sneak in there.
Got anything else?
Okay. I think so.
Move on to the 4A3. I think this conference doesn't quite get the notification, notoriety. That's a better way to put it. Than they should. And the reason I say that is, if you listen to this top 5 here, not a who's who of top 5 in the 4A, but when you look at this top 5,
probably
this is my top 5, by the way. It might not be yours. Gosnell, Southside, Highland, Pocahontas, and Blytheville. That's really solid programs there. If you look at Blytheville at 5, Blytheville could be that team that could jump up in any year because of the athletes that they have. But if you look at the top 2, Gosnell and Southside, both those teams are super well coached, phenomenal programs there, especially at Southside, years and years and years now. Their coach Kenny Simpson has done a good job. To me, it's a coin toss between Gosnell and Southside. Trey Allen coming back, but man, Gosnell brings back so much. Gosnell was a team that we started to look at kind of in the middle of the year and think, this team right here has got a chance to win it, and they blew a massive lead at home against Warren. I think that game ended up being 44-42, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And, I mean, Gosnell was up 25-30. I mean, it was way up there that they were up and ended up losing the game. Of course, we know that Warren is just, they can be overpowering offensively with all of the dudes that they've got. So, this is a team, this Gosnell team, that brings back a lot of starters that really and truly last year was probably one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the 4A. So I think they've got a shot to really make some noise this year. So I'm going to go Gosnell, Southside, Highland, Pocahontas, and Blytheville as my top 5.
Yeah, I think that Blytheville, like you talked about, they're a team that can always explode in any given year. This year they brought in a new coach in Caton Hill, who comes over from Cross County. He was the defensive coordinator over there last season. 2 things that I think that he brings to that program that they need is a guy who has experienced a championship and has experienced winning. Yes, it was at the 2A level. Yes, it was as a defensive coordinator, but he got to learn under one of the best in the state in Van Pascal for a couple of years. He knows that Northeast Arkansas area well from coaching at Cross County and going to school and playing football at Arkansas State. I think this is a great hire for Blytheville, and I think that, another thing, after coaching Danny Beal, who was, besides being a great football player, just a fantastic athlete to be able to move and do the things he did at his size. And then go, he's going on over to Fayetteville and making some noise over there. I think that, he's a guy that can get the most out of his players and really get them to be a cohesive unit. And I think that it's going to be a better year for Blytheville than some people might expect.
Yeah, I agree a lot. Right off the bat, Gosnell, I'm extremely high on this year. They've got a lot of starters back off a 10-1 team, like we talked about. Warren game, they lost 44-42 in the playoffs. They only lost the year. Quarterback Jamar Allen, 6'1", 190. He was all conference last year. He's a stud. Mason Woods at tailback. I mean, this guy's 5'9", 180. Had all kinds of production. And then they've got multiple receivers back. All conference, what is it, Lamarco? I think I wrote that down wrong. I can't read my writing. That's what it is. But Lamarco Wilson, or Wilborn, I'm sorry, 5'11", 175. He was all conference. They got a junior in Jake Riggs, 6'3", 180. Coach says he could jump out of the gym and go up and get, he's one of those Antonio Jordan tops for the Razorbacks. Going to win, 80-20 balls all day long. And then they got a sophomore who had 1,000 yards last year in junior high, Kelso Hassel, I believe is how you pronounce it, Hallsell. I have Gosnell as a sleeper to win for a state championship. I really have them high. After that, Southside right on their heels. We know Kenny Simpson does an excellent job. Trey Allen's coming back, senior. He was a stud last year, 1,860 yards passing, 15 touchdowns. He's a really good one. He also ran for 684 yards and 12 touchdowns. They're kind of going to build everything around him this year. They've got some other guys that really helped him out a lot. Aiden Rodriguez is about a 300-yard rusher coming back for them. And they've got a few other guys as well. I think Southside, they kind of rebuild. Jake Roberts is a guy that's going to play some wide receiver, running back. And they've got multiple offensive line guys back. I think they got 3 starters, but I think they moved their tight end to a starting tackle spot. And the coach said he might be the best blocker on the team. So I think Southside's not going to, I think they're going to be right there. They're a legit top 10 team in the 4A. Highland, I like at third. Highland's got some guys coming back. Their running back, Jackson Tribble, is a good one. He had over almost 400 yards last year, 5 touchdowns. And they've got a couple guys defensively. Tayson Brink, 75 tackles last year. He'll be back for them. But I like I like Blytheville at the 4 spot. I do love the new coach. Obviously, we know his track record. They've got some guys coming back as well that no one knows about hardly in the state. Chad Bell, really good quarterback, had over 900 yards last year. And rushing wise, I believe there was someone, who was it that I was thinking about? Not rushing, receiving. I don't have them actually, but I've got a couple of defensive players. Traven Orr had 88 tackles last year, 74 for Trevin Lewis, and 68 for Bruce Rocio. So I think they've got some pieces coming back. And Bruce Rocio, I apologize. That's Pocahontas. But Pocahontas is another team. I think them and Blytheville are kind of neck and neck. Could go either way. That's who I've got in the 5 is Pocahontas. They've got Xavier Ballard back, 1,300-yard rusher. He's a really good one. And they've got several pieces on defense as well. A lot of production coming back.
And let me just say this: Pocahontas last 2 years has went in the first round as a 5 seed and won. Mm-hmm. And I think both years at Nashville, if I'm not mistaken, back-to-back years. Is that right?
Yeah, and those were huge upsets. That's one that flashes across the screen on you. You're like, wow. Yeah, and that does speak to that conference. That if your 5 seeds going out and knocking off 1 seeds, I mean that usually tells you something right there. I do think it's an underrated conference. I think what Kenny Simpson's done up there at Southside is great. Gosnell, do y'all know the head coach's name? Off top
Chris Smith.
Chris Smith. He's obviously got them rolling, and I'm very high on the Pirates.
All right, let's move on to the 4A4, and we've already talked about Ozark some. Number 5 is what we have them to start the season. Feel good about Ozark this year. I think, Coach Josh Watson over there, something about the name Watson being the head coach right now. They're really doing well. Ozark, I think, has got a guy there in Watson as the head coach. He's brought an edge to that football team.
A lot of confidence.
Last year, they were on the verge of being a team that was a top 8 team. And lost it. I believe they had the lead with like 2 minutes to go at Bauxite. Ended up losing that ball game. They turned around this year. I think they've got everything that they need right now. I think they're pretty heavy 4A4. 4A4 favorite there. The Cap kid at quarterback, just a hard-nosed bunch. They're just a hard-nosed bunch. Boonville, the thing about when you talk about Ozark and Boonville together, Boonville beats Ozark 2 out of every 3 years historically. That's just how it is. I played at Ozark. I'm just telling you, that's how it works. There's been many a good team at Ozark that felt like they were going to beat Boonville and didn't beat them. So it's a very, you can't just sit here and count out Boonville, even though they're a 4A4 team. Consider this: Boonville has spent most of their time in the same conference as Ozark. It's only been the last few years that they've been back into the 3A. They've been a 4A school. They dominated the 4A4. So it's not like they're going to move up from 3A and be overwhelmed. They're not going to be overwhelmed. To me, Pottsville is a team right now that should make some noise this year. Number one, I've been telling everybody about Pottsville. I'm like, you need to get a playoff game at home. It's been years and years and years since they've gotten a playoff game at home. I'll tell you what, Penn Helton is a kid that probably not talking about enough. A very, very large kid, 6'2", 220. He's a hoss. Tyson Thacker as well, another one. Those two are going to be in the backfield, and they're going to run that dead T. Yeah. And they bring back the quarterback Johnson, and he's going to be pretty good. Pottsville's not going to be a pushover, I don't think. What Pottsville's got to do is figure out a way to rise up. In junior high, Pottsville competes in the top. But when they've gotten into senior high, it's been, for whatever reason, I don't know why. It's just for whatever reason, they haven't competed at the top. They've been more toward the mid, but they usually make the playoffs every year. I think going back to the dead T with the kids that they've got in the backfield, I could see a scenario.
A little bit of ground and pound, keep your defense off the field.
Well, I could see a scenario that November 6th, when Boonville comes to Pottsville, that there's a lot riding on that game.
Good old-fashioned slobber knocker.
Right. Mina is a wild card for me because Coach Craig Bentley does a good job there. They lost a bunch, and from my understanding, their size is not that much. But you can't count out Mina, in my opinion, because they've been so well coached. I think they're going to be pretty good. And Coach Bentley might be playing under the radar a little bit. You get a chance to do that. He might be doing that. And I have in the top 5, I have Dover. I've got Dover. Coach Josh Jones over there now. Dover has not won in a long time. They haven't been very good in a long time. Endured a lot of winless seasons. Josh Jones, not a guy that wins 0.
Right. Dover's won one conference game since 19 or 18.
I think he's going to bring some things back to Dover that I know that you've been looking for a long time. You look at that schedule, I think you could pull 5 wins off that schedule if you're a Dover Pirate fan. The games that you've got to win to get to the playoffs, you got to beat Subiaco, you got to beat Waldron, and you've got to beat Lamar. Those are the 3 games in the conference that if they win those games, that's where they're going to lock themselves in. And that's what I've got as far as the 4A4.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Josh Jones over at Dover, he doesn't have, a lot of, in talking, I know that, Duran has his finger on the pulse over at Dover all the time. So, being able to hear from him and being like, okay, yeah, we love Josh Jones. We think he's going to be a fantastic coach, but we feel like we may be a year away. Josh Jones doesn't feel that way. He's in a win now mentality. And I think that speaks a lot to the way that he thinks that program can transcend under his leadership. And that's, a kind of confidence that you want out of your coach. You want a guy that's not just, sort of confident and not willing to put in the work and get the team where it needs to be. We've seen Josh Jones do that at Lamar. And, when you talk to Coach Jones, he's very excited about this new opportunity. I don't think he would have left Lamar if he didn't feel like, okay, I've got something that I can really work with over at Dover. That's a place that he was at for, was it 15 years or maybe longer than that?
About 14 years.
14 years.
Mm-hmm. He won state championship magazine before that.
Yeah. So he's a guy that is not, he's not a guy that's just going to move around from school to school just because he's looking for the next great thing. He really feels like he can build something over at Dover. I think that, I think 5 is probably right where I would have them too, just because they're they're a team that plays in what's been considered a very competitive conference, just from the standpoint of, okay, anybody can make it into that last spot or two. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to see where he takes it.
It's likely going to come down to that spot. Could very well come down to the Lamar game, the Dover Lamar game, and just behind the scenes, that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be one to watch for sure, because there's going to be some heat out there, I believe.
You want to talk about the rest of the conference?
No, I was just giving my input on the new coach.
So I've got Ozark number 1 easily. John Skolarski, one of the better backs in the state, one of the fastest backs. Coach Watson's done. He stepped into a great situation. They had so much talent coming up right when he got there, but he's also a great coach. He just puts so much confidence in those guys. You can just see that when you're around him, when he's in the room. He's a magnetic kind of guy. But not just Skolarski. They've got Easton Fox and you can just go down the list. Adden Richardson, several guys that are going to help them. Cade Cap, obviously. They're loaded. I think they're easily in the top spot. I don't think there's any question about that. After that, it gets a little muddy for sure. I do like what Pottsville's doing this year. I don't normally pick them this high because they have always seemed like they had the talent to go 1 or 2, and they always end up like 4. So it's kind of tough, but I do have Pottsville in the 2. Mina and Boonville, I have flip-flopped back and forth on this multiple times. I do like Mina's head coach, and I think they've got some good pieces. Obviously, we're concerned about their interior lines. Tyson Baber is a really good running back or receiver coming back for them. Hank Rose, another guy that I think will surprise some people this year. I interviewed their coach. I'm trying to remember. Hank Rose is if I remember right, I think he's going to be their quarterback. I think he was a freshman last year, and he got to play at the end of the season. And they're really high on this dude. He's like, I want to say he's like 6'3", 6'4", dual threat guy. I think that's going to help them a lot. So the thing about Boonville, and I agree with everything you just said a minute ago, Brad. They've been in the 4A. They don't normally have any drop off when they move up and down. The thing is, that class last year, I feel like if you're going to catch Boonville, this is the year to do it. And that doesn't mean I don't think they're going to end up 7-3 or 8-2. I'm just saying, if you're going to catch them, this is the year to do it because they had such a big senior class. They lost all those guys. They do have some really good pieces coming back. I called the Fordyce game last year in the playoffs. Brody Chambers is a stud, and he was, Hunter Warren, their starting fullback, was a stud, and Brody was taking time from him. That's how good he was. He kind of put that team on his back in the fourth quarter and made that a ball game for them. Brody Chambers is a really good one. He's another one of those May guys. Those what are the other ones? We Boonville guys for years.
Ray. The Ray guys, yeah. Golf.
Yeah. That's the other one I was thinking of. And Day, of course. Ray, he's just he's an absolute stud. And then they've got a couple pieces defensively that will be back. Braxton Hubble, he's a good player. Lathan Schaefer, I remember calling his name out a few times. He's a good one. So I think I'm going to take Boonville ahead of Mina. But like I said, I've flipped back and forth. Boonville's so tough, so physical. If Mina is struggling in the interior line, I think Boonville has a way they can get past them. And then it'll kind of come down to the Pottsville-Mina, Pottsville-Boonville games because if Boonville can find a way to beat Pottsville, they could creep up in the 2 spot. Yeah. They really could. And we'll see what Mina does with their skill guys they got. But obviously, I'm going to talk about Dover a little bit. I do have them in the 5. It's tough to say that because it's been such tough times. But what I really am excited about is what Coach Jones has said when he first got to Dover, when he looked at the talent he had coming up and the talent coming back. He was pleasantly surprised. I won't say everything, obviously, in those conversations. But what I told everybody last year was, you had King coming in to coach. King had a great pedigree. He's a good coach. But the class before that, those seniors were so talented. That was one of the better classes that's come through Dover in about a decade. And obviously they won 2 games as sophomores, 2 games as 2 games, I want to say 1 game as juniors and no games as seniors. And no, I think I got that back. 2-1 is what it was. They beat Waldron their senior year, which is the only conference game we won in half decade or so. but they were all gone. So you had to start out with sophomores and juniors and a very small senior class last year. So he stepped into a really tough situation. Those guys now kind of grew up a little bit. So now Jones is coming into some experienced guys, plus a good ninth grade group moving up that are sophomores this year. 3 really good offensive linemen that'll go both ways. I think he's really happy about those guys. And there's a couple H backs, a couple fullback guys. Dover is most of the time a wing T. He runs a double wing. That type of offense really fits the personnel they have. They always have good linemen, pockets of skill guys. Sometimes they have some really good skill guys, but that's about once every 8 to 10 years where they have a plethora of them. So I think they have a really good chance. Subi, coming off 8-man state championship, got to transition back to 11-man. We'll see how that works out. They've got a couple skill guys back, but I think it's gonna be a tough road for them this year. So I think Dover can win that one. Waldron last year, I was a little bit higher on preseason. They ended up 1-9. It was kind of a shocker for me. I thought they were a 4 or 5 win team. Dover has a chance in that one. If they can slip past them, it'll come down to that Lamar game. And I think those guys are going to play their hearts out. Obviously, that's going to be a rivalry type thing going on with Coach Jones moving over. So Dover has an outside shot to get into the playoffs, which is saying a lot after the last few years.
Let's move on to the 4A7. 4A7 is, when you look at it, I feel like the top 3 especially are a lot less predictable. I'll say that. You've got some teams, Nashville, Arkadelphia, Malvern, always good, always at the top of that conference. You can move those around in any way you want. We've got Nashville as our number 1 in the 4A7, and the reason I feel like that Nashville, I'm pretty high on them as well at number 2 in the state. Brad Cheshire, big fan of Brad Cheshire. We're big fans of Brad Cheshire. I think Brad Cheshire brings culture to a program. I think he brings defense. He brings physicality. And then when you do that at a place that already has athletes, already has guys, it's football town, there's culture there. I like Nashville to take the top spot there in that conference. But like I said, Arkadelphia is a team that you could easily put up there, and Malvern as well. Malvern comes off a state championship in 2022, so it wasn't that long ago that they won the state championship there. And then I'm going to tell you a wild card for us, and one of the reasons why we're doing one of their games is Fountain Lake. Fountain Lake by Hootens is picked 6th in the conference. If Fountain Lake is the 6th best team in the conference, that's a pretty darn good conference.
Mm-hmm.
That you want to talk about a fun and gun, air it out attack. You don't get any better as far as just offensively. And I haven't looked to see what they brought back.
They brought back Bus and Harwood for sure.
And those are huge numbers.
Yes.
Both those two have huge numbers. I come in with them at 4, and I like Ashdown at 5. There, I think you get a pretty good drop off there in the bottom of the conference there. Genoa really doesn't have much of a shot when it comes to that conference. They play 3A everything else, and I mean it would behoove them to be able to play 3A football, and even then they were having trouble in 3A. So they're definitely 4A is going to be tough. So when you look at the teams of 4A7, obviously you got your top 3: Nashville, Arkadelphia, Malvern. Then of course you got Fountain Lake and Ashdown. I think are teams that can definitely make some noise getting the playoffs.
Right.
Hope is a team that has moved down from 5A. They haven't won very many. I looked at Hope and I thought, well, can Hope make the playoffs? Not to say they can't. We're just prognosticating. Hope hasn't had a lot of luck against teams in this conference. So unless they're a step ahead, a little bit better, I didn't think that they would be able to maybe rise above some of these others like Ashdown. In fact, Ashdown beat them last year in overtime. Fountain Lake as well. I like Fountain Lake, Bus, and Harwood.
Yeah.
They're going to, unless you're prepared, you're going to have a hard time with Fountain Lake.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to give you my 5 again. Nashville, Arkadelphia, Malvern, Fountain Lake, Nashville, Arkadelphia, Malvern, Fountain Lake, and Ashdown.
One matchup that I'm really excited for would be Nashville's defense and against Fountain Lake's offense.
Yeah.
I think that's one that could be really interesting with Coach Cheshire being a defensive coach. I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, but that is Coach Cheshire's alma mater. I think he played linebacker there. Going against the defense of Brad Cheshire is always a difficult task, but when the offense is like Fountain Lakes, and Coach Matt Richardson has done a fantastic job over there. And again, we talk about this with a couple teams every year, it seems like. If their defense could just take one step forward, they would be in the mix for just about everything. The problem is their defense has not been up to the standard of the offense, and so if that defense takes a step forward this year, and it doesn't take that much, it's just maybe allow 3 less points per game or something like that. It's gonna really push them forward, and the offense. Every time they're getting off the field, they're going right back on. It's a tough situation to be in, and so it's going to be interesting to watch Fountain Lake and how that plays out. Malvern's a team that always historically has had success ever since as recently as Jalen Dupree being over there and winning them a state championship. And then Arkadelphia with a new head coach, Chris Kaiser, coming in this year, coming in for Trey Shucker. He was the guy. If y'all remember last year at Desark, the community basically rallied around Nick Smith being promoted to head coach. I think it was a similar situation in Arkadelphia, where the community was basically like, okay, if we don't promote from within, if we don't hire Coach Kaiser, it's going to be a big mistake. Mm-hmm. So I think that he's a guy that has the community behind him, knows that community well, and I think he's a guy that a defensive guy. After they've been so good on offense the past few years, they're an interesting team for sure. And I think just with that change, it may be hard to pick against Nashville to be at the top of this conference.
Yeah, I've got Nashville at 1. Like we've talked about it pretty a lot now. Coach Cheshire got some good things going on there. Jacoby Hobson, great running back, coming back for them. They've also got a guy named Bryce Perrin that had 8 touchdowns, over 500 yards last year, kind of spelling him. They're loaded. I like them a lot. Arkadelphia obviously is just full of athletes, and I think it was a good hire. Obviously, the people in that community and the players on the team were pushing for that. Usually is a good situation. Works out most of the time. So it's hard to go against Arkadelphia. I do have them at 2, but that could go either way. I do like Nashville just barely ahead of them. After that, I've actually got Fountain Lake in my 3 spot. So a lot of people that have never watched Fountain Lake, they think we sound crazy right now, but we were able to do the Fountain Lake Clinton game, first round of playoffs. Clinton won that night. Clinton was a really good team, a top 4 or 5 top team last year, even though they didn't make the semis. I think they lost in the Arkadelphia in the
second round.
So Cooper Bus and Harwood are absolute freaks. So thing about Peyton Harwood is the guy's about 5'8", 5'9". I ain't trying to be disrespectful to the kid. I don't know what they list him as, but I've never seen a kid that small that could actually work himself open. And we talked about this live last year during the game. He would run the route, and he would slow run on purpose when he would get past the corner's trying to catch up to him. And then he would slow down on purpose to fake the corner out, where the corner would start to relax. And then at the last second, because he knew the ball was still out ahead of him, he would burst back ahead to get the ball. It was one of the most savvy things I've ever seen from a 5'8", Danny Woodhead looking top wide receiver, Amendola, Wes Welker top. Can't catch him in a phone booth. He is an absolute beast, and Cooper Bus needs to be getting some looks at on a Division I level. He's got Division I arm talent. But what makes me more excited about them is we know about those 2 guys. Is they've got a kid that we loved last year. I think he was a sophomore, if I remember right. Case Hare. Remember we were talking about him? We were like, my gosh, this guy could play running back for them. Right. He was built like a running back. He's a wide receiver. He looked 6'2", 190. I mean, looked like just a stud out there. He had, let me find him again here. at receiver, he ended up with 1,413 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns, which looks like nothing compared to Peyton Harwood's 1,803, 122 catches, 20 touchdowns. He's another guy like Jackson Denton.
Top 10 in the nation.
When I got their numbers last year before the Clinton game, I thought it was a mistake. I thought there's no way.
When you told them to me, I was like, this ain't right. You know,
right.
That's like NCAA football top numbers, you know, like PS5 or Xbox.
What is Bus? What do they have him coming back as? Like with the numbers?
3,454 yards, 247 to 381. What is that? 65% or so. 38 passing touchdowns. He also ran for 362 yards on 61 carries and 8 touchdowns. So, I mean, he can get it done both ways. The big issue with them has been their defensive lines. It was, and really just the whole defense last year, it was not good. It was not good at all. If they can find a step up there, like Carson said, that's really going to push them forward. I do like that they got Caleb Castle coming back, led them with 106 tackles last year of who's coming back. So maybe that's one piece they can work with. I think he's a linebacker, a secondary guy, maybe a little bit of a hybrid. That's one piece they can work with. We'll see how it goes. But I've got them at 3. I've got Malvern nipping on their heels right there at 4. And I do have Ashdown as well coming in at 5.
I'm getting ready here. I want to pull up Scorebook Live because I want to look at the playoff picture as well. Last year we hit, I don't know if you went back and looked, but we hit some pretty deep into the playoffs. I think last year we had Boonville and Fordyce was kind of our state championship game, and those two met in the semifinals. So we were pretty close there. So we'll get that here. 4A8 here before we get into the playoff picture. Just a little bit here. Stuttgart right now seems to be consensus number 1 in the state. Again, you've got the best quarterback, top quarterback, the most highly recruited quarterback in the state in Kane Price, and 3,623 yards passing, 42 touchdowns last year. He also does it on the ground as well. And, Stuttgart was 13-0, I believe, going into the game against Elkins. Elkins really just pounded them. Coach Josh Price said that was as far as the defense goes, the 5 best defensive players they saw all year long last year were on one field, and that was Elkins. So, anyway, they were able to come through. They beat Blytheville. They beat Bauxite. Then they lost in the semifinals to Elkins. And, I say this, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here when I say this, but there's always a team that shows itself at the end of the year. That's the team. Last year in 3A was Mansfield, 4A was Elkins. You could just tell this was the team that was playing the best right then, right now. So anyway, that said, Stuttgart fell to that. Now they're trying to recover. They're trying to come back, and they've got all the weapons to do that. Daquan Hall, obviously Kane Price. They're going to be offensively. They're going to be hard to stop. Last year, the classic game that they had with Warren, 59-55 at Warren, I believe. Stuttgart was able to come out of that game there. Of course, in that conference, you had Hamburg, who had Nikel Lewis, the Thomas kid. Their offense was phenomenal.
Yeah.
A lot of offense in that conference. There's still going to be a lot of offense in the conference. We've already talked about Monticello a little bit. I'm going to give you my top 5, and then I'll let you guys have it. And I say this, there's a lot of drop-off at the bottom of this conference, I think. And so with that said, I got Stuttgart, Warren, Monticello, Hamburg, and DeWitt. And in that top 3 there, you could see any of those in any spot in any place there. But I'm going to go with Stuttgart at the top, Warren, Monticello, Hamburg, and DeWitt.
Yeah, I like Stuttgart as well. You talk about Kane Price. He's probably considered the best quarterback in the state right now. At least the best senior quarterback in the state. He's a guy that has been around football his entire life. His dad has been his head coach in high school, and Stuttgart's a community that always, loves their football program, pours into their football program, and that's why they're a really, really good year in and year out. So it's hard to pick against Stuttgart there at that one spot. I think Monticello with Joseph Aquilas has the potential to do better than we expect. And I'm not predicting that they will be the 1 seed or anything. I'm just saying the two best players, two of the best players in 4A are in this conference, and some could argue the two best players in 4A are in this conference, in Aquilas and Kane Price. So it's really, really hard not to look forward to that matchup between Monticello and Stuttgart, because that could be a shootout between those two schools. And then Hamburg is a team with Coach Blake Johnson that's always in the mix too, and they've always got good athletes. Nikel Lewis is gone; they're going to find a way to replace him. If they do that, they're going to have a certain playoff spot. If they don't, and they're hard up for a replacement for him, it's going to be really, really hard for them to really get their feet under them. Probably DeWitt's a team under Coach Jason Hathcock. He's been there for a couple of years now. They probably have the culture and the system and all the rest that they want implemented at this point. So you would expect them to take a little bit of a step forward as well. And to me, Warren is always going to be a contender. Bo Hembry does a fantastic job over at Warren year in and year out. That's why they're considered one of the best pipelines for players to the Razorbacks every year and to around the country. So it's really, really great being able to see how competitive this conference is, and really looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yes, sir. Okay. I gotta say this just because I've got family in Stuttgart and DeWitt, that it's DeWitt, and but it does roll off the tongue easy to say DeWitt. But we learned that they told us that last year, when we called a game there against Star City a couple years ago. But DeWitt, I got them at the 5. I like a lot of their pieces. Ray Fry is a 487-yard receiver, 3 touchdowns last year. They got a defensive guy, Cameron Mitchell, that bringing back a lot of production. But let's talk about the top here. So it's tough. I know Brad has Stuttgart in our ASN overall rankings. And I love Stuttgart. Josh Price, quarterback at BB in high school, played at Arkansas Tech, turned the Dardanelle program around. He's done wonders at Stuttgart. His son is an absolute freak on the basketball court as well. I think Texas State is getting a steal with him as an athlete. Is it because he wants to play quarterback only? I think he has potential to be a guy that could get in a rotation in an SEC type school at receiver. I really do. But I mean, Texas State's getting a good one for sure. Warren, though, it's hard for me to pick Stuttgart over Warren, because Warren, that was such a close game last year. Jackson Denton, I don't think he's talked about enough in this state. He's one of the top guys in the nation coming back. Almost 5,000 yards passing, 47-16, 58 touchdown passes. The thing about Warren, their top 2 receivers are back. Josiah Steen, we had him in the ASN Classic against Elkins a few years ago. He was young then. He's 1,762 yards last year, almost Peyton Harwood numbers. 78 catches, 27 touchdowns. I mean, that's those are numbers like the all-time NCAA record in a year. It's a guy from Louisiana Monroe or Louisiana Tech back in the day in the 90s. Crazy number. And then their backup, their next receiver, he's not a backup. He's the other guy, is Tayshawn Edwards. This dude had 974 yards and 10 touchdowns last year on 56 catches. So, I mean, they're loaded in the passing game. That is going to come down to whoever's got the ball last, in my opinion. It's going to be a great game. After that, I have flip-flopped a little bit with Monticello and Hamburg. We were so big on Nikel Lewis. I think Austin P got a steal with that kid. I think he is built for running the ball. I think he will transfer at some point to a Division I Power 4 conference. I really am that high on Nikel Lewis. He is an absolute freak. But losing him hurts. I will say that. But they do have a lot of production back coming defensively. Aiden Robinson and Jace Harrington combined for almost 300 tackles coming back. And then their quarterback's back, which they weren't a throw-first team, but they did throw it enough. Caden Thomas, 591 yards rushing last year. He threw for 1947. So they got the pieces there. And then they've got 3 receivers back that all had over 200 yards, about I think 8 touchdowns combined. But I love Monticello. I think Monticello has just enough with the loss of Nikel Lewis at Hamburg to move into the 3 spot. Jackson Rawls is a Division I talent at tight end. I think they figured out their quarterback situation. Charles Kilgore, Ed Ramos, 2 big-time tacklers, over 200 tackles together with those two. And I feel like there's one more. Achilles or
Achilles.
Is it Achilles?
Yeah.
Okay. So Joseph Achilles, absolute stud, 2,300 yards. We talked about him at the top of the show for our members only, I believe, is when we were talking about that. Reminds me of Dupree a little bit, Marcus Dupree that played for Malvern, or Jalen. I was about to say that because I get the Oklahoma boogie in my head there. Friday Night Lights. But anyways, he's a really good back, and I know he's getting a lot of interest from some people, and rightfully so. I've got Monticello in the 3, Hamburger in the 4, and DeWitt coming in the 5.
Well, it's hard for us right now because we don't have brackets to be able to pick correct state championship predictions. Again, last year we had not Stuttgart, but Boonville and Fordyce.
Mm-hmm.
Boonville and Fordyce ended up in the semifinals against each other.
3-8.
Yeah. So, that was something that we were able to pick. But again, that was our pick for the championship, but we don't have brackets in front of us. So it's hard to say what the championship is going to be like.
Right. So once we saw Bismarck had to play Mansfield, that was like, oh man, who's going to win that one? And we obviously know, but yeah, it makes it tougher.
So we're just going to give you a pick, and I think, as of right now, as of today, I think Stuttgart with their experience that they had last year, going all the way to the semifinals. A lot of times you see that. It's like a natural progression. You see a team that goes all the way to semifinals. They have a great year. They find a way not to get through or get knocked off is probably a better way to put it, and they end up winning it all. So I'm going to go with Stuttgart as my pick to win it all.
Yeah, and one guy we didn't bring up, I do want to bring up, now we're talking about Stuttgart, is Taekwon Hall. I mean, he is a experienced running back, over 1,000 yards last year. Warren doesn't have that big-time production guy coming back in the running game. So, will they develop a guy there? Will that be the difference, coming down the stretch? So, easy to go with Stuttgart. I mean, I say easy. There's nothing to argue about there.
Right.
Is what I'm trying to say. Are you going to go through all of them, or are you just picking number 1?
I'm just going to pick number 1 because, again, I mean, you could give a pick. I mean, looking at the bracket, or I'm just looking at a bracket here. You've got the 4A8 is down low. Who knows where they're going to be? This would have been the same year that Harding Academy and Malvern played each other. That's the one I'm looking at right now because the year before was the last time that the 8 got the bye. So this year would be kind of like the year you would think it would be like. So that was 2022. Harding Academy and Malvern matched up against each other. So you had the 2 on the top. You had the 7 down below. You had the 8. Again, I'm rambling at this point. Nobody cares. That said, if you have something like this where you could have a Nashville Stuttgart matchup in the semifinals, I'll go with Stuttgart, and I'm going to say just shooting it.
Dark horse or what?
Just shooting it right now. Let's go with the dark horse. That's probably a better way to put it. Gravit will be a dark horse for me to possibly play for a state championship.
I would say that's more of a true. The thing is like a true dark horse. But the thing is like I'm looking at every conference individually, and there's like 4 2 seeds in there that could win the whole thing. I mean, that's how deep 4A this is this year. I mean,
that's how it's supposed to be.
Think about it. Arkadelphia, most of us have as a 2 seed. Southside, Gravit, Warren.
Yeah, Southside.
Any of those teams could end up playing in Little Rock.
Southside was 2 minutes away at Elkins from winning there, and Elkins don't go at all.
I personally don't have this as a sleeper. Gosnell, I think Gosnell is a legit top 5 team. Ozark would be a sleeper, dark horse top for me. And you can't ever say Arkadelphia is a dark horse or Warren. But I mean, man, I'd hate to be betting on this because it's so tough.
Oh, 3A and 4A is the hardest to pick.
I'd have to pick. I'll go with Stuttgart in my 1, and like I said, them and Warren, I've got them nipping on their heels. I mean, it's so tough, and then some of those teams I've already named. Elkins, we can't just talk about as well. Ozark, I think, is going to surprise some. So Ozark, I would say, I don't know. Gosnell would be probably my true dark horse because most people have them outside the top 5, and then Stuttgart is my 1.
I like Monticello as my dark horse. I think that Joseph Aquilas and Jackson Rawls being there, as well as Randy Harvey having been there for a long time, has that culture established. He's a Monticello guy. I think that at this point they have all the pieces to really put it together. The thing is, is it all going to mesh? And in the past, we've seen a lot of teams with talent that don't mesh, and it's just how it works out sometimes. So I think that Monticello is probably my dark horse just because of how much talent they have. Jackson Rawls being a true Division I tight end, Joseph Aquilas being a true Division I running back, I think is a great combination. And then for my overall pick, I'm actually going to go with Bauxite. I think that Bauxite's a team that always puts, routinely puts Division I talent out on the field. I think that they are a team that may be due for a deep run in the playoffs. Last year, I think we got a preview of that when they beat Mills. I think that was a huge upset that a lot of people didn't see coming, myself included. I think Wyatt Simmons or not Wyatt Simmons, he was the linebacker at Arkansas and the Harding Academy. Wyatt Foreman takes a huge step forward this year at quarterback. And I think that, he's a guy that they're going to put all their trust into now. I think that's going to help him a little bit. So I think that Bauxite's a team that I would personally say is really going to be really good this year.
I agree.
Thank you for joining us here on our class previews and our rankings reveal. You have seen us pick the 4A, and we will have more here on both Facebook and YouTube. Don't miss it.